Hey, Alex Terrace here. This is going to be the first part of a multi-video series that will be actually covering how you can start to do a better job balancing your hormones and encouraging greater endogenous production. So if you're a little bit older than age of 25 or something like that, and there is already a little bit of decline happening, it is possible to actually continue to restore and improve your hormonal levels without the need for bioidentical steroidal hormone replacement. And there are not many practitioners out there that are coaching and guiding people in these sorts of processes of bringing the body's natural endogenous metabolic potentials back. And one could consider this within the field of anti-aging. And it is so crucial because what's dangerous is that people's mindsets overall are in the quick fix. And if I do something, let's say take a supplement or take a drug or this or that, I don't have to be responsible as much for my lifestyle choices or education, right? Because education is first. So we know what exactly to do, what not to do. And so that is a trend that you'll see as more, information comes into the health field, and there's more every single day, new findings and breakthroughs, and it's just a lot. New technologies, new supplements, new products. With all that overload, it continues to just develop in people very much a consumeristic, again, quick fix, don't put in the hard work or take full accountability for how you're going through your day. And again, the choices that you make. And so in this video series, we're going to kind of really come back to the basics when it comes to leveraging or utilizing light, natural light, and artificial, actually. So there is some things out there, for example, for producing certain wavelengths, replicating those wavelengths. And those aids, those tools, products can be helpful for some people and needed. And with the leveraging of utilizing light, also this series will focus on dialing in your lifestyle around optimization or restoration, really, and a reset of proper or optimal circadian rhythms. And this is a really crucial piece because that has to do with, in short, how your body cycles through a wide variety of metabolic processes from when you're asleep and all throughout the day, from first waking up and winding down and going to sleep. All those processes, there's a lot happening there, and there are different things out there that can disrupt those optimal cycles, okay, metabolic cycles that absolutely, yes, do involve your neuroendocrine system, right, which are then producing hormonal compounds amongst many things. So generally what then will happen is with age, that dysregulation will continue and compound. And then we end up with a wide variety of symptoms. And or we might do some lab panels or tests and find that certain hormonal levels are not as high or in the optimal range as they used to be. Okay? What do I consider optimal? Well, assuming you're generally pretty healthy, again, that's automatically an assumption, right? But let's say assuming you are pretty healthy hormonally, let's just focus on that, and metabolically, from the age of 25 and under, then generally speaking, in that range, hopefully if we did some lab panels and tests and things like that, we would see an optimal range, fluctuation, movement of hormones, different hormones throughout the day, okay, and during sleep. Okay, so your endocrine system, let's say, maybe was healthier back then. And I say 25 and prior because there's some fascinating things that happen, and that's a longer conversation, with certain glands and parts of the endocrine system when we hit certain age markers. And now that gets into the study around anti-aging and reverse aging and longevity. So around the age of 25, this doesn't have to be like spot on for everybody, but somewhere around that age, statistically they have found that certain consistent declines in hormone levels, especially growth hormone, which is kind of like a precursor to many others that come after that. But there's definitely a sharp drop off around that age. And then again, like every, greater amount of years at different markers, we continue to see these big changes or shifts all of a sudden, which is interesting. So it's not always like a gradual thing, which is weird. It can be like, there are definitely the in-between times where it's a slow, gradual decline. But we can also see, again, around certain times of our life, big drop-offs in different metabolic factors like hormones. And so the key is, of course, or what we want is to know how can we avoid those situations? How can we reverse what has already happened if you're already older than the age of 25? Is there a way to go back in time and recover some of our hormonal levels and balance and function that was around that age? So again, that'll be covered in the series. And in this video specifically, we're going to dive into kind of like an overview, brief summary of hormones, light, circadian rhythms. And this is just a great primer, great precursor to the rest that will come in the series here. And by the way, you're always welcome to ask questions below and post those in comments. And you can always DM me as well if you are interested in just getting any guidance and things like that in your own health optimization. So I do get asked a lot about balancing hormones. I'm sure anybody who's relatively interested in health, you've come across a lot of information out there on this. And it is a very tricky thing if you don't go back to the basics in lifestyle and fundamentals. And those fundamentals are tricky to fully understand without the aid of knowledge of biophysics. Because when we talk about, electromagnetic energy, cell phones, Wi-Fi, radio frequencies, gamma rays from the sun, different light spectra, all these different things have an effect on the body. They have an effect on you. And it also does get in the realm, by the way, of emotions and thoughts and things like that too, and epigenetics. And it's a big rabbit hole. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But the most important point there is light being a part of that electromagnetic spectrum. And then if there is thus an evolutionary adaptation, which there is biologically, of how we are interacting or being affected by the light spectra, and by being affected, I mean there's an actual physiological change in our bodies. It has an effect on different cells, different parts of our body, and thus different types of metabolic processes. This would be the realm of our research or study in the context of health of biophysics. And that's a really important area of science to bring in to getting a better, clearer direction, sense, concept of what it means to optimize, to be healthy, to have the best shot at longevity and quality of life. And it's also the biggest area you could discern when you're evaluating and looking into wellness programs, health programs, retreats, practitioners that you may or may not want to work with, is seeing if they have kind of studied a little bit of biophysics enough that they can aid you with being aware of choices you're making on a daily basis with your lifestyle and specific things that might be affecting you more than the next person. And again, further, of course, then how to make those adjustments to come into greater harmony with the world of physics, the world of energy, okay? So there's many different things these days that we face beyond even the electromagnetic spectrum in terms of the things I just mentioned that can essentially dysregulate our hormones, okay? and could be excessive stress. And a lot of people are kind of have their gear stuck in the sympathetic part of the nervous system, which I know sounds actually quite calming, right? Oh, I have sympathy for that person. It's generally a very active state, and it's one that, like, if you were to just like get in the gym or you're going to run or something like that, or you got in a fight, something like that, that part of the nervous system actually gets activated. So parasympathetic is kind of more when we think of like relaxation and ease and feeling, and so these two really have to maintain a certain balance throughout the day, depending on what you need. And for most people these days, they have patterns and influential factors that are keeping them a little bit more in a sticky, sympathetic gear. Okay, and so it does make returning to a more optimal, normal, healthy, balanced metabolism and regenerative processes very difficult, or just functioning at peak performance. It makes these things very difficult to get to when you're stuck in that, So excessive stress, toxins, that's a huge one, because we start accumulating that literally while we're in the womb and being born. We've already accumulated a lot from our mothers. And then from then on, it's just accumulating more toxins. More. And obviously your body does detox naturally and release some of these toxins, but over time, essentially, your body gets run down for several reasons. So as your organs become less able to fully just clear everything, right, from that day or from the previous day, things build up and they further tax your energy resources in these areas, these organs and these processes, which leads to further accumulation, okay? So toxins are a huge piece of this equation. The ones that you might hear more common today, everybody's heard of, is these xenoestrogens, things you get from like plastics, different sorts of plastic compounds, right? And those they call them xenoestrogens because they mimic like estrogen. And so they can go into estrogen receptors in both men and women, because men and women need a balance of these sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone. And so they can really cause a lot of things to go haywire with how your body is receiving, or should be receiving, signals from those hormonal molecules. And one important thing to know, by the way, is that hormones essentially are signaling molecules. Okay, so they play a role in signaling all kinds of things, essentially whatever needs to be done in the body. Okay, that your brain, consciousness, mind, from the genome out are directing as needed, okay, on a daily basis. So hormones, in a way, are the central signalers that really affect everything in the body. So they're highly consequential. So that's why you never want to have a big oversight of like, oh, well, this is my health goal, or I'm doing this health program or this protocol, and you're not paying attention to hormones. I mean, all I could tell you is if you're not factoring in hormones into whatever you're doing, it's going to put you at a huge disadvantage. And most likely you're not going to get the results, whatever those are, that you're hoping for. So a lot of people I see are either doing supplements, nutraceuticals, programs, protocols, whatever, not factoring in the neuroendocrine hormone side of things. And that's just like an uphill battle. It's a battle that you'll never win. Because all those other things that you might be doing, those are mediated and controlled in part by hormone signaling. You see what I'm saying? So that might all be good. Everything you're doing over there might be great. But again, if it's not getting signaled properly to be utilized by the body, it's useless. It's not really then going to have its full effect. So it's just an important thing to really understand if you're on the quest for healing some disease or something specific, or just total optimization, longevity. You have to really pay attention to hormones. It's time, if you haven't yet, okay? And remember, you're still aging, right? So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to be even a more important topic, because the levels will even be more imbalanced or lower than before and all that kind of stuff, even more disruptions. So it becomes more of an important thing for you to pay attention to. Okay. And again, the more you put it off, the more will absolutely compound. Okay. Upon one, and then you'll just have more work to do later on. So anyways, let's lay the foundation here in terms of one important topic when it comes to hormones, which is light, right? Biophysics, how light affects us. Okay. So light actually plays a central role, okay? And it's not like an optional role. It's a central role in balancing our hormones, okay? So this includes steroid hormones, sex hormones like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, which tend to be more trendy, right, in the last 20 years in the health field. Oh, my testosterone's low, or, whatever, right? We hear that a lot more. And then there's also DHEA. That's another important one. You may not have heard of that. And then there's also cortisol. Probably have heard of that. And then there's melatonin. Most likely you've heard of that as well. People saying, oh, I can't sleep. I've got to take some melatonin, So that, by the way, would be an example of, okay, if you're going to supplement with melatonin, then you are technically right there doing some bioidentical hormone replacement. Okay, just to be clear. And by the way, they usually extract, it might gross you out unless you're really into health like me, but they extract it from the pineal of animals. And you can actually take peptides as well, peptide bioregulators, which can help sometimes for the pineal gland. But anyways, that's a side topic. So there is a way we can balance our hormones, our steroid hormones, our adrenal-based hormones, our thyroid hormones, hormones related to metabolism like leptin, kind of all through the lens of light, okay, light spectra, all right? How we're receiving it, how we're interacting with it, how we're responding to it. So that's really kind of where we need to start before you look at anything else. And I mean that pretty much across the board. So if you're like, Alex, what about this amazing supplement over here, this product, or what do you think about this diet, or, what about, what about whatever, right? Fill in the blank. Okay. This is where we start. So all those things, cool, great, whatever. Put them on the table, put them on the side, right? Until you get your foundation down, okay? And that's kind of what we're going to summarize and go over here. So, absolutely, we want to reduce, toxins that are coming into our body. Sure, we absolutely want to reduce foods that are known to be very inflammatory. Okay, these, again, I'm not saying that those things are not also very important in part of a complete protocol and contribute to hormone imbalance. But when we lay the foundation of light, we can maybe pinpoint where the imbalance might lie, and thus where additional support is going to be needed by all those awesome fancy things out there. Okay, we're constantly getting marketed to, So again, those have their place, but you kind of have to go into those things from the right order. Otherwise, you'll just be very confused about why something kind of worked or it didn't work, and that's where most people end up, right? So I've tried 15 things, and how'd that go for you? You know what I mean? That's a common story. I've been there. I think pretty much everybody has been there. We've tried a million things at this point. And not always really gotten exactly where we want to be with our health. So oftentimes people have really dysregulated circadian rhythms. And when they have a dysregulated circadian rhythm, all the other hormones in the hormone cascade can go awry. Okay. So it's kind of where we want to begin the discussion. First and foremost, there are two primary hormones that will surge throughout the course of a 24-hour period. Okay. The first one will surge at dawn and into the morning, and that is cortisol. Okay? We are designed to get outside in the morning. By design, I mean the intelligent evolutionary design, okay, of how our biology works. Okay? And you don't have to believe, by the way, in all that stuff, but basically that is how our biology works. Okay? A lot of these things have been well studied at this point. So, if you get out in the morning when you first wake up, instead of just hanging out indoors all day, or going in your car, going to your work, things like that, which obviously a lot of people are in that routine, right? We're designed to get out, get sunlight, okay, perceiving it through our eyes. And by the way, I have blue light blocking glasses, okay, just to kind of go with the theme and the fun of this video, But during the daytime, I generally don't wear these. We wear them later in the evening to start, and we'll talk about that. But first thing in the morning, you got to get outside. You got to get sunlight in. Mainly, it's the blue light from the sun. It is absolutely related to why the sky is blue, okay? And if you get that natural light in the eyes, this literally this is common sense now. This is literally telling your body, I am awake now. It's time to start my day, right? Like, we just kind of think about it. It's obvious, right? Oh, well, obviously, tomorrow's going to be Wednesday because today is Tuesday, and I'm going to wake up in the morning, and it's going to be the morning time. I'm not going to wake up in the morning, and it's going to be the afternoon or the evening, right? No, obviously not. That would be totally backwards. Well, people on an endocrine level and circadian level, they can get that scrambled around. That's the point. So there's certain things that should only be happening at certain times of the day or while you're sleeping. And instead, those things can be happening at different times when they shouldn't be. Does it all make a lot more sense now? So how do you know it's the morning time? Well, I see the sun. I see blue light. It's bright outside. It's not dark outside. Exactly. Okay. So your body then also has to prepare for having enough energy for that day. Eating food. There's all these different things we just kind of take for granted. Okay. And this is where it all begins. Okay. So remember, sunglasses can disrupt the process. Okay. And being behind glass can disrupt this process as well. Bring these things up because there's a lot of people that wear sunglasses, right? Or the prescription, okay, well, nothing wrong with prescription, but you may not want to wear those at certain times, okay, if they're going to tint on you. And even if they don't tint, again, that glass, anytime you're behind glass, it will alter the spectra just a little bit. And is going to have a huge dramatic effect? No. However, you're going to find this important, that if you do have some glass in front of you, okay, or sunglasses or something, especially if those sunglasses have a tint, that is absolutely going to affect like how long you're going to have to spend outside to get the type of light signaling effect that is optimal for you. So do you want to spend 50 minutes outside? You know what I mean? People are always go, 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 right in the morning, right? They don't usually have like a really balanced practice to set their day, which is usually an important thing to do. So if you want to spend less time doing this, absolutely, you have to just raw, unfiltered, have your eyes registering the light, okay? So I just want to emphasize that point. Otherwise, you're going to have to spend a lot more time outside in the morning, okay? Now, I would just share one quick thing is there's a lot of things that you can do if you think creatively that you can do outside in the morning that you were doing indoors, okay? And so, that won't be absolutely true for everybody, but there's probably going to be at least one or two things that you could possibly do outside. So just kind of think about that. And then that can be a way of clocking in your time, okay, outside first thing in the morning. So and if you can't think of anything, then there's a lot of great practices you can do in the morning to have an awesome, epic day, okay, and be more effective. So look up all those different things you could do. And I will give some ideas, of course, in my videos. So remember, no glass, okay, this is raw unfiltered. We need to basically have unfettered access to the changing amount of blue light that gradually is increasing in intensity from sunrise to solar noon, okay, to signal the brain that the day has started, okay? And sure, if for some reason you can't get out, you just woke up and like you really can't, like for 30, 40 minutes, an hour, get out there. And in this scenario, let's say you're maybe, not going to work, okay, and you do have the liberty to be at home or whatever days, still get out there, okay? Somewhere between when you get up and noon, it would still be good to the best of your abilities to get out there before noon or as many hours ahead of noon, okay? So it's better than nothing, all right, if you can at least manage that. All right, just wanted to add that in. So when the brain gets into its eyes, through the eyes, it receives certain spectra from the sun, okay? That is when it prompts on your neuroendocrine, neuro meaning light, electromagnetically is turning into pulses through the nervous system and registering to certain parts of the brain that are actually encoded to sense specific spectra of light like blue, okay, primarily. And that is now what sets off a cascade, a message, and what's going to message through hormones, okay? And in this case, it's going to, bing, use cortisol, okay? That's why if you've ever heard of like a saliva cortisol panel or lab test, they are hoping to see that in the morning, first things when you rise, that your cortisol will also be higher during that time, okay? So that is one thing they look for, by the way, to see if things are out of balance or not, okay? Anyways, so your cortisol will get signaled in this whole process we're talking about, okay? The eyes communicate to the hypothalamus and the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's a part of the brain, and that's a really fun thing to say if you want to sound smart. And that is basically, that area of the brain is the time clock in our brain, and it sits in the hypothalamus. Like, how does it know it's the morning? How does it know it's like late afternoon? Like, if it didn't know these things, everything would not work very well in your body, and you'd probably like be dead, like, in all honesty. It has to keep all kinds of things working in balance metabolically, okay? So the hypothalamus actually regulates many aspects of our physiology. And one of the cascades that it kicks off at that moment in time in the morning is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So you may have heard or seen the abbreviation HPA axis, okay? And I can't pull up on the screen right now, but after this, whatever, if you want to just type in HPA axis and look at Google Images, you can kind of see there's the whole chain starting from the brain, right? These glands up here, the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and it signals down to around where the kidneys are, where the adrenals are, okay? So there's a whole axis in your endocrine system, okay, that runs a lot of things, all right? So at that moment in time, our adrenal mitochondria, which are, again, in the adrenal glands. Mitochondria, if you don't know what that is, Google it. But power plants of the cell, they do actually do a lot of things, okay, to keep our cells going and our organs and tissues going. So you have a bunch of cells there in the adrenals, okay? Inside those cells, there's mitochondria. When they receive that signal, okay, from the light, remember, and then the hormonal signals, they start making, so again, the mitochondria and the adrenals start making pregnenolone. That is another hormone, okay? Pregnenolone is the start of the steroid hormone cascade. And this is where we really begin to see the process of making our steroids, our sex hormones. So do some people take pregnenolone? Have you seen it on a grocery store, right? A health shelf or Amazon, right? Yes, absolutely. Some people take that supplement in a capsule, most commonly. And that would be an example of what? Bioidentical hormone replacement, okay? And the purpose of this video and the video series and working with me is we don't ideally want to do that, okay? I think sometimes it can be justified maybe if you're like 90 years old, you know, and you're really just trying to do everything you can. You know, I think sometimes there's some exceptions, but most likely you don't fall into that if you're watching this video. So this is a crucial piece here. So another way of saying pregnenolone often is referred to as like the mother of hormones. It's fairly true. A lot of other hormones are manufactured or signaled after pregnenolone. Okay, so people often think hormones they work in isolation. Okay, and they don't. They actually work very interconnectedly and constantly fluctuate throughout the entire day. It's complicated, and your body's brilliant at sensing internal and external myriad of factors, an unfathomable amount actually, and balancing all of that like every moment. It's insane. So this brings us to the point that, okay, if they're constantly fluctuating all the time to maintain an optimum balance just for you, what happens if I just like take a hormone? I'm just like, you know what? I need 25 milligrams right now, or I'm going to rub this hormone on because I'm low, you know? Well, when were you low? You see what I'm saying? So, or a thyroid. You know, a lot of people have thyroid imbalances. It's extremely common, especially with women. And they're like, I'm going to balance my thyroid. And it's like, your thyroid's always changing. Like, literally in 10 minutes, it's going to be different again. Okay? It's constantly being regulated and affected by things. So what does that mean to balance your thyroid? Do you see what I'm saying? Now, if those words came out of a certain practitioner's mouth, whose job in part was to prescribe drugs, okay, or supplements for that matter, that because some of these pro hormones and things like that, and they are now in like the mainstream supplement industry too. If their job is to sell you something like that, then they're going to use phrases like that, like we're going to help you balance your thyroid. Sounds great. Like, sign me up. I feel like crap. You know what I mean? Who's going to say no to that, right? But the reality, the truth of it is that it's just not possible. Okay, you cannot take. Oh, I'm low T. I'm low testosterone. How trendy is that? I mean, they're making, oh my gosh, so much money right now on many levels of who's involved in the testosterone thing right now. Oh, what are your levels? Oh, they're this level. Okay. Well, they should be over here. Really? So it varies person to person. So that's not even accurate. It doesn't track. And then people think like, oh, I'm just low in that, and then they don't factor in any other hormones. That's just going to lead you to more problems. End of story. More problems. Okay? You can't just be taking something like that in isolation and like, okay, just hope everything sorts its way out. That is obviously not an ideal way here because, again, they all work together and change throughout the day. So now that you just understand that basic logic, it's very easy to understand why you wouldn't want to just go take a hormone by itself. Okay? So, another little thing you might want to look at too on Google is just the steroid hormone cascade. Okay? So if you want to say, like, just literally type that in, like pregnenolone hormone cascade or hormone breakdown, HPA axis, or something like that. And you'll see literally the hormones that come after that are formed after that initial signal, okay, in the morning. So what really kicks off that steroid hormone cascade, okay, with the light, right, the cortisol, okay, the pregnenolone involved in the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenals, right, the mitochondria, and the adrenals, okay, producing that. They also need cholesterol. Cholesterol, yes. Deadly cholesterol, right? That's mainstream med. Bad cholesterol, bad, and oh my gosh, right? So that's a lot to unpack too, okay? Because cholesterol is so important for so many different things, and one is the proper manufacturing of hormones. So some of you may already be thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to be screwing around with my if I'm screwing around with my cholesterol levels with a drug, or even some natural herbal compounds, could that affect my hormone metabolism things that I need, right? Absolutely. Uh-oh. And now you get into a big gray area. So personally, I don't ever recommend anybody does their own experimentation, which it really is what it is, okay, because everybody's different, right? When you're messing around with your cholesterol levels, because there's other ways, first off, to work on that area of metabolism, okay, without necessarily the need for those drugs, number one. And then number two is you may have those side effects of now affecting your hormonal levels. And there's a lot of feedback now with people taking those cholesterol drugs and seeing a lot of crazy changes in their hormonal panels. Okay, so moving on. So in the mitochondria, in the adrenals, okay, it takes that cholesterol, turns into pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is the master hormone, as we've said. It's the master steroid hormone because it can convert into all the other downstream hormones. Okay, in the morning, it's designed to funnel the pregnenolone into the cortisol pathway. Okay, and we're designed to have this natural surge of cortisol in our bloodstream to signal that the day has started. The body gets this natural cortisol surge into the bloodstream, and all the cells can then perceive that the day is beginning. It's healthy cortisol. A healthy cortisol surge is not the cortisol that we release in response to stressors. Okay, so don't be confused. Okay, because there's a lot of people say like, oh, cortisol is so bad, this is stress, and then it's like, yeah, yes. Okay, but for those other circumstances. Here, it's also just, every hormone has its place in a healthy, optimal function. One is not necessarily bad. Okay, so the type of cortisol surge in the morning, along with adrenaline surges, again, that are produced in the adrenal glands, it can be triggered by stressful events like a bad drive to work or a fight with somebody, a stressful deadline, homework, a business presentation, whatever. You get the idea. Okay? So, it can kind of go two ways. The challenge with some of those things I just listed is that you could have those situations happen at any time of the day, right? So it's like, okay, I don't know, this makes more sense now. If I really want that surge in the morning to just set everything else up properly, that whole cascade, and then all the like gajillions of other metabolic processes that are going to happen in response to that, I wouldn't want to have that surge like a few times or a prolonged period of time or a random time like 6 p.m. or 10 p.m. or 3 p.m. or, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever, down to the minute, down to the second. And all these random times, we would not want that. Or repeatedly, or prolonged, as I said. Some people get almost stuck in that response. Okay? So you can imagine now, oh my God, now that you just know a little bit about how important like a sequence here is in hormone sequencing, you can see immediately or just understand, oh my gosh, wow, over time, yes, if I was in that pattern of those things triggering cortisol, that could really dysregulate and disrupt a lot of processes. And that would then compound those disruptions over time. It's literally like throwing a monkey wrench into some really elaborate gear system. Okay? So a lot of people don't actually get this healthy surge of cortisol in the morning. So forget the stressful events for a second, which is already bad. Not as optimal. Okay? In the morning, most people don't even get a strong surge of cortisol. And by strong, I'm alluding to the fact that there is an optimal amount, okay, and that's quantified, of cortisol that's going to peak, right, when you first wake up and certain few hours there. And what it does is it actually like peaks, okay, if you look at the charts. And you can literally just Google images of it. Peaks. And then over throughout the day, it's just going to like literally just cascade down. Just like that, like a little mountain. You're scaling and then you're going to go down. And that's part of you winding down, okay? So that's how it should look, okay? So if it's just like barely a peak, it's just like enough where you're like, I got to roll out of bed and I don't know if I really feel like starting my day, Like you might just be getting like barely a peak there, okay? So there's different varying levels versus like, remember, everybody remembers this, but when you're a kid, whatever age, you're a kid, you jump out of bed, you're just like, you literally like jumping out of bed, right? You're like, bing, you're just like, boom, just like that, instantly awake, right? And by the way, if you didn't experience that, that may actually be a sign that you had some health things actually going on, and that can be caused by different things. But that's normally, we kind of remember that, or at least on like Christmas Day or whatever holiday or your birthday, just being that excitement and the first morning. That's actually really how it should be. Okay, none of this like, oh, where's my coffee? I'm not even alive until I have my coffee, or insert stimulant, whatever. So a lot of people don't actually get a big enough surge and a healthy surge. And one of the main reasons, okay, is they haven't synchronized their circadian signaling in their brain, okay, first, with morning light. I know it sounds like the simplest, ridiculous thing in the world. Okay, but that is actually like, think about it. How many mornings have you woken up by now, right? You could actually obviously easily calculate that on a calculator. So that really adds up. It really adds up because now you understand these things compound when the imbalancing happens. So now how many mornings have you woken up to, right, where things were already imbalanced from the mornings before? You see what I mean? So everything just compounds. So it actually ends up having a massive impact by the time we're in our 30s. Everybody's different. By the time we're in our 30s, could be 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It just really depends on a lot of factors. So eventually it really catches up with people, okay? And it becomes like the most important thing to finally get right and shift and adjust, okay? And then when you do make the lifestyle shifts, you obviously have to be consistent, right? Because you're trying to undo years of dysregulation. So if you're just like, oh, I'm going to like change things up for a month and I'm going to be like golden, I'm going to take like photos of my abs and it's going to be great, right? It's like, I don't know. You have to commit to this for a little bit. The good news is that if you do commit to it for actually a minimal period of time, and it's not a lot, you will actually track and notice some really positive changes. And that actually will give you more motivation, good hormones, good neurotransmitters, all these things that will reinforce that behavior, and it actually becomes very easy because your new patterned behavior and habit, new routine, it's taking hold, right? So you just got to hang tight. Anyways, when should somebody go outside? Ideally, that would be sometime between sunrise, maybe an hour later, optimally. Okay. If you're in a far northern latitude during the summer, generally when sunrise is like super early, just make natural light the first thing you see when you wake up. Okay. Because you kind of like, if you're conditioned enough, for example, where you're waking up at 10 or 9 or 8, right, or somewhere in between, and you're like consistently waking up around then, great, that's awesome. Just so then when you're ready to start your day, you want that I'm ready to start my day hormonal signaling, right? And so then the first thing would be like light, right? You want to pair that with that time and just keep that in sync, right, as much as you can. Okay, so it's not about like you need to now wake up at 5:55 a.m. and do a special, breathing practice, while you stare at the sun with your third eye, and it's just like, how many people are going to do that? Okay, so it doesn't have to be anything like that. You don't need to wake up at 3 a.m. or any in these crazy yogic practices, unless you feel like you really need to kick yourself in the butt to really make these changes. But so your brain just needs to perceive enough blue light, okay, as it elevates in the sky, the sun elevates, and that's it, okay, because we want that curve, the cortisol curve, we really want that to start to sync up, okay, and you can actually track this, which is really cool. You can actually track this in a lot of different ways, all right. How much time in the morning? 20 minutes minimum. If you can do more, you will actually, when you're first starting this, you can get back on track a little bit faster, okay? So you can get some benefits a little bit faster if you are willing to commit a little bit longer, okay? I will say that's a fact. But if you can just do 20, you will get the results, as long as you're consistent, okay? And so now we have this natural surge of cortisol that happens, okay? So now now your body funnels that cortisol into, the pregnenolone gets funneled, a lot of it, into cortisol, okay? And then your body also takes some of that pregnenolone and creates progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, and DHEA, okay? Both men and women need varying amounts of that, okay? And varying amounts depending on your age and your activity level, okay? Which is a big secret, by the way. So some people are more active when they're 75 than some people that are like 25 right now, okay? So there are many different pathways that can kind of like convert or interconvert to optimize our sex hormones for fertility and reproduction. Which hormones actually get elevated depends on where someone is, if you're a woman, in your menstrual cycle, or your age in terms of fertility. Okay, and that does go for men too. Obviously, some men are more fertile at age, younger age versus much, much, much older. Okay, so it's important to note that we want to funnel some of the cortisol, and then the rest can be distributed among the rest of our steroid hormones. Okay, so we want to ensure that we're in a state of perceived calm in the morning. Some people are like, oh, I'm mostly calm for a brief window until I remember I have to go to the job I hate, or I'm going to sit in 45 minutes of LA traffic, or whatever it is, right? Or I hear the sounds of the city when I wake up, right? So these are also just important things to know, okay? And write down on a piece of paper, like, is there anything in your morning time that might just give you a little bit of agitation and stress, okay? And so part of your effectiveness is, yes, light is really important. We're all understanding this, okay? But can you nullify a lot of those potential signaling benefits with stressful things in your morning? Obviously, because those stressors send their own signals, right? Now you've got mixed signals, right? Nope. So how much this will actually affect you from really restoring these processes is going to vary. For some people, they'll get almost no results, because they just literally have that much of a patterned stress response in the morning. Okay, so that is very crucial. Okay, Can you be, can you get away with even being a little bit more stressed a little bit later on outside that crucial morning window? Yeah. I mean, do everything you can to just in that morning window be the least stressed that you can be. So you at least have in the beginning the right start to your day from like a neuroendocrine perspective. Okay. So, and this is why like all those other things that we could go on and list that just kind of stress us out, whatever. Those things, not a big deal in the short term. Okay. But long term, create tremendous imbalances because again they're going back on affecting this entire complex series of biochemical signals, okay, that regulate what? Everything. So yeah, pattern stressors here and there, internal, external, because obviously we can think a lot of stressful things too, right? Long term, oh my God, will that catch up with you? How will it affect you? In every way. So say if it was like one, it's only going to affect you this way, it'd be like, all right, that's not so bad. I'll just be a little stressed. No, this is compounding on absolutely everything. So it's a big deal. I mean, there's even some old school clinical studies, you can look them up, on stress. And like how many thousands of genes through epigenetic pathways get affected or turned on or off in a not optimistic way in response to stress. It's like off the charts. It's so bad. All right. Anyways, moving on. Okay. So want to make sure we're in a state of perceived calm in the morning so we can optimize really all those sex hormones production in the proper cascade. Okay. Now, what's the next best thing you can do to perceiving light when you go outside? This may or may not be possible for some people, which is earth. Earthing means you're standing on the ground, barefoot, or laying on the ground with skin in contact. Feet are really ideal for certain reasons. People are like, oh, I don't know, so woo-woo, like I'm going to stand on the earth and this whole electromagnetic effect's going to happen. Yeah, actually, there's a ton of research now, a lot of research on that specific function and what that does in the body. Okay, because it's actually fairly easy to measure. There's different ways we can measure it. And some of the studies have been done with having devices that are conductive to your body materials and plugged into the earthing port on your outlet in your home that goes into a grounding rod into the earth. So a lot of studies also have been done with those types of products. And if you have any questions on like what are the couple best companies for that, just let me know. So earthing is actually very legit. Yeah, absolutely. 15 plus years ago, we didn't know a whole lot about it. There were some good, interesting things out there that seemed to be like, yeah, this is pretty legit. But now there's just like a plethora of evidence. So it's really something that you got to do. So now you're wondering like, oh, I can't, get on the earth based on, whatever the excuse is or whatever the reason is. If you're in that situation, again, get one of these earthing products and you're just essentially in the morning going to make sure that you're earthed, you're grounded. Now, one super easy way to do this, that's the best of the best, is that you use a grounding mattress cover. So that means all night long, there's a lot of complex things that happen with circadian rhythms and what happens during the nighttime and how that is related to signaling and earthing and why it's beneficial to be earthed all night long or grounded on your mattress. That's what I would suggest, because basically when it's morning time and you're getting that light in your eye and you're like, oh, I think it's, I'm seeing the sun, my eyes closed, but the light's coming in. You're already grounded. You're already well grounded, right? So the next thing that you need is light, okay? So that's like the ultimate lazy, easiest thing in the world, right? Because you're just putting it on your mattress. So that's what I would highly suggest, okay? All right, so when you touch the earth or a grounding material, one of the beneficial outcomes is it helps to balance your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. That does a lot of things. One of the things it does is improve your heart rate variability. It's just another term if you're like, what does that mean? there's so much great information out there. And again, that's actually another area of biology that has had a lot of research done on it in the last 10 years. Even more in the last 5 years, but especially last time. So look that up. A lot of great YouTube videos out there on what heart rate variability is and how it's a good measure of different functions in your body, your health, things like that. Okay? It has to do with the frequency between pulses or beats, okay, in your heart rate. So, and that, by the way, is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, which is, again, why grounding is having an effect on the nervous system, parasympathetic, sympathetic. So again, a lot of people are in that go, 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 stressor, highly focused, beta brainwave, sympathetic dominant, dysregulated circadian rhythms, hormones, taking stimulants. They're more that sympathetic nervous dominant state. Okay? So grounding, earthing, okay, combined with the light, is going to help your autonomic nervous system to, if you're one of those people, okay, in that sympathetic, bzz, okay, and you're too dominant in that, it's going to help you counterbalance in a better ratio back to better tone in your parasympathetic nervous system. Little sidebar thing because it just came into my mind. But when they measure people who have heart attacks, heart events, in those moments, it's related to heart rate variability. In those moments, they have an extreme sympathetic nervous signal. And they don't have enough resources to muster a strong enough signal, so basically enough parasympathetic tone in that part of the nervous system, to counterbalance in that moment that strong sympathetic signal surge. So now that people have that strong sympathetic signal surge, and then boom, heart attack. They have enough parasympathetic going on, it can, whoop, okay, whoa, we gotta balance that back. Most people don't have that other part of the equation, the resource there, and balance in their lives. So they just lean that direction and boom, have an event. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, so I'm just sharing that, like, if you never want to have to worry about a heart event, that is definitely one way. Everything I'm describing here will reduce your risk of that and everything, right? Because I already mentioned all these signals and hormones and all this kind of stuff. Circadian, it affects everything, okay? So it will reduce your risk of everything, okay? When it comes to diseases and health issues and all kinds of stuff, okay? So when we ground, we are shifting into more parasympathetic if needed. We're also sending a signal to our body that says, hey, we don't need to funnel excessive pregnenolone into cortisol right now, okay? We're not in a state of threat, okay? We're not being chased. There's nothing, we're not fighting for our lives. You get it, okay? We're just going to have a normal peak of cortisol, enough to get us going for our entire day and set the cascade of proper hormone sequences, okay? So again, on those tests, when you do like saliva cortisol panel, people that are in these overly sympathetic dominant patterns in their lives, okay, they're really dysregulated. We might see an extreme peak of cortisol, too high, or at a weird time of the morning, okay? Usually with some questions, we can actually figure out why it happened at that time. Okay, so there is, again, of course, as I said before, there's a natural level. You don't want it too low, you don't want it too big, you just want it somewhere in the middle, right? So again, you don't want an excessive amount there, okay? So the balance is what allows us to funnel the hormones of fertility or just natural sex hormones, a balanced amount, a good amount, into a harmonious state in the morning, okay? So due to the combination of signaling in the brain, what time of the day it is, earthing, it's a beautiful way, essentially, to start to rebalance hormones naturally. And as the sun starts to rise higher in the sky, we'll begin to have the presence of ultraviolet light, okay, also known as UVA, UVB, and there's some UVC, okay, during the middle of the day. That's what usually happens when you get more ultraviolets. Like, in other words, it's easier to get a sunburn, right, in the middle of the day, okay? Remember that? Because there's more UV rays, okay, versus like early morning or way late in the day. Okay, so during the middle of the day, it's also important to go outside and get sunlight on your skin whenever it's available to you. How much skin? As much skin as you can manage, okay? if you're in a public area without getting arrested, depending on what country you're in. So the sunlight on the skin, and I'm not talking about like needing hours of sunlight on your skin or anything like that. Okay, it's just not good. All right. I'm talking again about like as much skin as possible, 20 minutes. If you have a lot of skin exposed, you could even get away with 10 minutes if it's really an optimum window, time of the day when UVAs, UVCs, UVBs are stronger, okay? That'll depend on what part of the hemisphere you're in, obviously, okay? So again, 10 to 20 minutes consistently, depending on those variables. Most important thing though is just the consistency, okay? Because some people will struggle with this. Consistency. It's not like, oh, I missed the last few days. I'm gonna hang out for 45 minutes out there. It's like, no, it's just not gonna work. Okay, it's not as optimal. All right. So getting regular ultraviolet light. So you got 2 times, right? The morning, mainly it's about the eyes and the brain getting light, mainly blue light, morning, and then you're using your largest organ, your skin, okay, to get as much ultraviolet light as you can in a little window. And we've all heard of vitamin D, right? This is partially why we're doing it, right? Your skin plays a role with that UVB light, specifically that wavelength, UVB, okay, on your skin, to manufacture vitamin D. We call vitamin D, it's not a vitamin, it's a steroidal hormone, okay? Which makes it more important, or like a priority, before vitamins actually. So if you're like, it's really important to get vitamins for my diet, it's like, it is. However, the extent to which those things will even work well, properly, will require certain signaling to sense those nutrients, to metabolize them, and to use them for all kinds of stuff, okay? What do you think is responsible for that? Hormones. So vitamin D, the hormone, is going to be really important. Okay, if you want all those other hormones to actually work right. Okay, so when you get that UVB light in your skin, it attaches a sulfate molecule, chemistry, okay, which basically means it's called a sulfated hormone. Why is that important? This is what allows a hormone, like vitamin D, to travel freely through the bloodstream without needing a carrier. Okay? So in the middle of the afternoon, the body has the opportunity to decide whether it needs this much estrogen or whether it can funnel some of it to the liver for elimination, or a different hormone for that matter, okay, in this example. And so the light and the UVB, okay, on the skin in this example is having a hormone balancing effect, okay? And you're also making vitamin D. Okay, so that's 2 separate things, okay? Making vitamin D the hormone, which also interacts with all the other hormones and all kinds of processes in the body. It's a lot. There's a lot of great studies on vitamin D. A lot of studies. And then that UVB light is also doing what? It's sulfating the other hormones in your body. So hold on, Alex. Are you saying that I might be having hormones in my body, or I might be able to manufacture some hormones? However, the extent to which those travel in my bloodstream well to get to areas of my body that I need optimally, that's really going to depend and be greatly affected by how much of them will go through that process of sulfation, okay, having sulfate attached to those hormones. Yes. Okay, so hormones that you're manufacturing, okay, so like if you think DHEA is important or you think testosterone is important or whatever, okay, they're just not going to have the same effect on your body. In other words, you won't have enough of them circulating and being in the right metabolic form without sunlight, specifically the wavelength UVB. Wow. And that's impacting you every day that you're not getting UVB. Oh my God. And really obviously blue light first thing in the morning, right? To really set things off first. So now we're almost seeing how they work together, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm doing the morning, and that's great. I'm doing the morning, getting the light in. You're making all these hormones. Awesome. But wait a minute. To the extent that those hormones are really going to have a beneficial effect on me for the rest of the day and the evening, right? And cumulatively over time, to the extent those are going to be actually greatly affected by if I did or I didn't get enough adequate UVB on my skin from the sun later in the day. Whoa. Oh my God. Okay. So do you see like how crucial this is? So hormones that affect absolutely everything health-wise and really affect you emotionally and mentally, all of those processes as well, because they're all working together, right? And spiritually, but that's biophysics and another conversation, big topic. This is how crucial these practices are. This is why it's a funny thing, because people are conditioned by what others are doing or not doing, doing, not doing. And we look to others and we're like, oh, well, so-and-so, he's not in the sun or doing these things, every day, every week, every month, years. So could I not do those things too? Yeah, technically, of course. You don't need to do these things. However, are they having a negative effect on these people not doing these things? Yes. So do you want to do that too and have the same negative effects? So in other words, the body is amazing, okay? Because it can keep itself going, functioning, surviving with missing a lot of ingredients that normally would keep it functioning optimally, okay? So this really gets into a question of, hey, you have X amount of years to live. Did you want to spend the rest of that time living suboptimally, which means you might not really enjoy the quality of your life? Something also very extreme could happen to you, which really greatly reduces your quality of life. Or you just might be suboptimal where you'll never really know what you could have done in your life because the capacity to do those things was being influenced, controlled, affected by your body not receiving what it needs to function for you optimally. Okay? Super simple analogy. You don't do enough maintenance on your car, and now with your car you can only drive short distances without the engine overheating. Okay? So you're confined to a 15-mile square radius around your home. Do you want to live the rest of your life within a 15 square mile radius? Yes or no? Just answer the question. Most people are going to say, absolutely not. And heck no. I mean, I could give you right now 10 quick reasons why I would not want that, Is it better than being in jail? Absolutely. But you see what I mean? It's just another level of confinement that's majorly reducing a lot for you. And that's a really good way to look at this. And what's tricky, the analogy is really easy to explain. Oh, well, Alex, if I was only confined with 15 minutes, like this, and this, right? Cause and effect, this is so easy. I could name all these things all day long, whatever, right? Here's the direct consequence. But what makes it so challenging and for people to value changing their lifestyle with things like I'm describing here is because these negative changes towards suboptimum function in your body, in your life, they happen slowly over time, okay? Perfect example, tomorrow when you wake up and you look in the mirror, are you going to look, 20 years older, 30 years older, 40 years older? I don't know what age you are. Maybe you're already old. But you know what I mean? You don't just your face is like, oh my God, I'm 10 years older in my face, tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that, right? The changes are so gradual. It's really hard to track. Unless you've seen one of those videos where they take a photo every single day, right, in the mirror, and they show the person aging over time lapse. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, all in one shot in 60 seconds. Yeah, it's crazy. I can really see it. So there's all these little things that happen that you're not consciously aware of in your body that are negatively changing. They're things you wouldn't want to change if you knew. They're going into suboptimal function. Okay? And it's affecting you, but sometimes you just don't always piece together how it's affecting you until certain things happen together metabolically, and now you have an actual symptom. Or now you start to actually notice something. Okay? So that's what's tricky about this. So a lot of people they can't always muster enough motivation to make the changes because it's not always easy to track how these things are affecting you because the changes happen to you over such a great expanse of time. Okay? So that's why it's also important that when you make these positive changes, you have to stick with it for a period of time, a minimal period of time. Let's say 30 days. It's average. Okay? People will sometimes notice effects well before that. Okay? But if you can at least hang in there for a month, it'll be enough to cause enough of these changes in your body where you actually will notice better effects in your body with whatever it is, and emotions and mental. Okay? So let's get back on track. All right. So back to UVB, vitamin D. So in the evening, as the sun sets, the body anticipates a period of darkness. That's when we block artificial light at night using blue light blocking glasses, like what I have. If you block artificial light at night, you allow the pineal gland in the brain to start making a lot of melatonin hormone. That's another key circadian hormone that surges in the evening and at night. As melatonin enters the bloodstream, it signals to all of the cells in our body that it's time for darkness. This allows us to turn on all the genes for repairing our body, regenerating. There are many different cascades that need to be initiated at night during our sleep to support this repair. We need that melatonin signal to be strong. Okay? It's another thing that declines over time. Okay? Which is why people age or they have new health issues that creep up on them, or suboptimal performance and well-being. Okay? It's a slow decline over years, lots of sleeps. Unfortunately, these days we're exposed to a lot of artificial light at night, so we suppress our melatonin production in studies by upwards of 80%. It's crazy, just from these artificial light sources in the evening time. And these white LEDs, by the way, those are the worst. They produce way more blue light than even the sun produces in the morning. Okay? So in the evening, it's like, time to wake up, rise and shine. 10 suns have just risen. It's the morning. And it's like, no, it's actually 10 p.m. It's actually 8 p.m. So you can see, oh my God, whoa. Wow. Over time, that is no bueno. Okay? So not only that, you have an increase in cortisol, kickstarting the steroid hormone cascade at a time in the evening when it's not supposed to be initiated. So this is why you see a connection between artificial light at night and hormone-driven cancers. And there's some interesting studies actually on artificial blue light related to a lot of different health conditions metabolically. So that's interesting. And so you have significant surges in breast, prostate, uterine, and ovarian cancer. Because of this, there's also metabolic dysregulation, diabetes, blood sugar-related things, metabolic syndrome, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So if you can block artificial light at night, you can prevent that secondary surge of hormones, allowing natural melatonin to rise, which signals our bodies not only to fall asleep, but also to go into deep tissue repair when you're asleep. So how do the other hormones like leptin and thyroid hormone come into play? Well, thyroid hormones themselves also have a circadian rhythm. We're not just talking about TSH. We're talking about free T3, free T4. These hormones are designed to have rhythmic highs and lows during the course of a 24-hour cycle. In individuals who have poor circadian rhythm, which is a lot of people, and a lot of those people, by the way, take thyroid hormone replacement. Okay, so those who have a lot of poor circadian rhythm, research has shown that when they don't have strong circadian rhythms, you actually see almost a flatlining effect over a pulsing, it's really a pulsing of the gland, versus a pulsation effect So it's a flatlining versus a pulsation or wave of the hormones if you track them over a 24-hour cycle. Okay? So in those with strong circadian rhythms, you see these appropriate surges. Okay, so as I was saying before, like all day long, 24 hours, thyroid's busy, 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 along with everything else, all the other glands, all the other hormones. Okay, this is why automatic you're like, can I balance my thyroid with taking a drug or hormone one time? No. I mean, yeah, because even if you broke it up and you tried to like mimic these pulsation wave patterns, if it's like one day that was possible, like day to day, you're different on different days. That's what's so complicated about it. Like your body is always responding and adapting to things. So like tomorrow, you have a slightly different effect on all those different thyroid hormones than today. So some thyroid hormones are designed to be more elevated at night. Others should be more elevated in the morning. That's what we want. We want those thyroid hormones to surge when the body needs them to communicate metabolic function to all of your tissues. And the thyroid does a lot, by the way. Oh my God, does it do a lot. That's why if you like Google like signs or symptoms of a thyroid imbalance, it's like, why don't you just list everything? Like that's kind of confusing. And it's like now then you realize like, oh my God, like God, the thyroid's really important. And I wish it was just the thyroid. Then you got all those other glands on top, and they're also very important. And if your hypothalamus and pituitary is not doing what it's right, it's going to affect your thyroid. That's another reason why you can't balance your thyroid by taking a thyroid drug. It's like, oh, let me just give it for the thyroid. It's like, okay, so the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the pineal don't exist, and they're not actually more important in some ways? Okay, sure, that makes a lot of sense, doctor. Because it did come out of mainstream med. So you can kind of see, like, this is bogus. I mean, like, why would you give something downstream when it's regulated upstream? There's an order. Count from 1 to 5 for me. Oh, okay. 4, 5, 2, 3, right? Isn't that how it goes? No. It's 2, 3, 1, 5. Anyways, that's what it is. And here's my prescription. Exactly. So that's it in a nutshell. There's an actual order, believe it or not, to this. Yeah. And it actually starts. It's a sequence. So that's when we talk about that endocrine axis and the sequencing of timing that happens. 4 o'clock happens after 2 o'clock, correct? Yes or no? Yes. Is 6 o'clock p.m. different than 6 o'clock a.m.? Yes or no? Yes. Okay? I'm just making it super simple. And as simple as this is to understand, it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Hormone clock, organ clocks, all these things are doing different things. Most practitioners are not abiding by any of this when they're trying to help their clients or patients. It's crazy. Okay. So let's talk lastly about leptin. We hear a lot about insulin. We don't hear a lot about leptin, but it is a very complex, crucial hormone as well. So leptin is designed to be released after meals, typically around 4 hours after we have digested our food. It gets produced in our fat cells, actually, and then docks or is received into the brain from the fat cells. So a signal is going, okay? So that provides like a download of how much, so it's taking an assessment, how much energy we have stored in our bodies, okay? With that information, the brain then decides whether someone still should feel hungry. In other words, it's going to motivate you to eat more food, get more energy, more calories to store in fat cells, muscles, or no, and instead I can use fat as a fuel source, okay, and delay the hunger signaling, right? Because you're good, you got enough energy stores, let's tap that, right? We don't need to eat more, okay? So leptin plays that really crucial signaling between all of that, which indirectly affects everything, of course. So this is critical both between meals. Frequent snacking, by the way, is like one of the best ways to totally like screw up this whole process, just FYI. Good rule of thumb real quick, to get at least try to get your leptin back on track and leptin sensitivity, which is complicated. Try to at least go 4 to 5 hours between meals, okay? And that over time will do a lot for you hormonally, Okay? So frequent snacking can impair the process, especially at nighttime, when leptin is designed to dock in our hypothalamus roughly around midnight. So that's based on a circadian-based download as well. Okay? So why? It's obvious. During the daytime, you need a lot more energy. And when you're sleeping, well, you're sleeping, right? And you're also not doing what? Eating, right? You're not eating in the middle of the night. Sleep eating. So there's a totally different process that has to happen in the middle of the night. Okay. So that's one reason. By the way, I'll just say it again. Why you definitely should not be a late night snacker. It's like the worst of the worst. Okay. So again, and by the way, last meal of the day, another rule of thumb, leave at least 4 or 5 hours from dinner time to going to bed with no food in between. And your whole sleep process and hormone process will all work a lot better. So again, we know at night we're not designed to have any food, actively digesting. The brain should be doing other things, not focusing on actively digesting food. So the brain recognizes this, that you're not eating. It downregulates digestion at nighttime. If leptin can generate and release during this time, hopefully, it can dock into the hypothalamus and provide the energetic download of information. Okay, so it's like an assessment of your entire day. Okay, all your activities, what went on metabolically for you. Okay, in preparation for what? For the next day and all the demands. So that download dictates a lot about how the hormones of sex hormones will be divvied up the next morning, divided up essentially. Because remember, every day is different, right? So choices you made, things that happen in the day, every day is not identical, obviously. So all these things, of course, is downloading that information, okay? It's like, based on today, I need to do this is my job to do. That your body's always working. All right, I need to do this, and this so that you have the best chance of having a good day tomorrow, an optimized day, okay? You're not going to fall apart. So if leptin can download at nighttime properly, it signals that there's enough body fat stored to sustain, for example, a pregnancy. Okay? Which allows us to balance hormones concerning optimizing fertility. So I'm just throwing that out there because a lot of people have fertility problems these days. It's all intimately tied with this. Okay? If leptin cannot basically make us have that sort of information download because it's dysregulated, typically due to a lack of an appropriate circadian signaling process with night-based hormones such as melatonin, properly having a strong enough surge and release, leptin can't provide the download. The body essentially will be in a state of uncertainty about energy reserves. Consequently, it will downregulate the hormones, sex hormones, making the assumption that there is scarcity of energy and a threat. The threat meaning like you just literally are like starving. Okay, that's kind of a better way to look at it. Okay, so in a sense, what can happen to that in that danger? You might see an increase then in cortisol. Okay, why? To provide the energy one needs in that circumstance where there is danger of, in today's world, this illusory possibility of starvation. So the body's not like, oh, you got food in your fridge. Like, you're good, bro. Tomorrow, like, you're just going to pick out, oh, I'll be good. It's not sensing that. It's sensing in real time what's going on in your body. Okay? So if it's like, oh, I'm not getting that strong signal, so I don't really know how much energy I have, which means I could actually starve, possibly. Because the body really doesn't know. Like, it could be days without food. It could be an hour without food. I have no idea. So it's like, okay, well, you're going to need energy, right? You can't be laying down in bed all day if you need to go eat food to get more energy. So that's when the body pumps cortisol. So it's like, oh, boom, I get that surge of processes, and now I can get the motivation to go to the store or open my refrigerator or hunt down a lamb or a cow. I don't know. So that's how that works. So you see, yes, you have food and you can always have access to food, and that's great. We have that luxury, right, in our first world country. But even though that's the case, you can still be dysregulating your hormones, okay, by the signaling process not appropriately happening here. So you're not really going to starve, but the minute you get that starvation signal because you're not getting the proper information signaling back, negative impact, okay? And it can't be fixed like the next day, be like, oh, I'll just eat a big breakfast. It's like, it's already too late. Like you already had the negative signaling before. So that's why every day you really have to get this sequence correct. So there's a lot to consider simply by looking at some of the main hormone cascades through the lens of light and circadian rhythm. Again, this is just a basic foundation in this video that I lay out basically with all my clients and people that I coach, because it's important to optimizing these pathways firstly. Again, doesn't matter what supplement you take, okay, or whatever you're doing, okay. It might not work at all, okay, if this kind of foundation of sequencing here that I've laid out is not really dialed in, okay. So hopefully in this long video, and the other ones will be shorter, they'll just be more numerous and broken up, by the way. Stay tuned for that. If you found this helpful, you have questions, you can post those questions below. And thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. And hopefully y'all found this helpful. Anyways, take care. My name is Alex Terrace.